Morning to you all, to all of you. I'm very happy to introduce here two colleagues at these Aglaya seminars. These are the monthly meetings of the myth criticism program, as you know it, about the reception of ancient, medieval, and modern myths in contemporary society. The first colleague I have to present is Xiana Sotelo. Thank you very much for staying here, Xiana.
Thank you, José
Manuel. Studied for several months at Berkeley University. Then she got her PhD at University Complutense, if I am not mistaken, and from there she moved to the Universidad Francisco de Vitoria, where she has taught for several years. And now she's an assistant professor at the Complutense University, where she is studying on gender studies, eco-criticism, ecofeminism, and other studies on intersection and intercultural dialogues. And I'm sure you know several of her publications, because she has widely wrote about. And thank you for coming here. And now I have to present Marta Silvera, who studied at Las Palmas de Gran Canaria. But before that, she was at Berkeley University, at Texas University as well, I think so. And then she got her PhD at Las Palmas. Well, her main field of interest is the relationship between natural sciences and human sciences, and everything related to the affective neuroscience. Thank you for staying, for coming here, Marta. Thank you very much. And finally, thank you.
Thank you, José Manuel.
And finally, what I have to say is this is an aperitif of the conference, which is going to be held at the Complutense University on the 29th of November, if I am not mistaken, which has the title Preliminary Approach, Mythical Narratives of Healing, Transcendent Light, with Sense of Belonging, and Witchcraft Aesthetics. The case of hashtag witches of Instagram. Please, your turn.
Thank you very much, José Manuel, for this kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Our deepest appreciation for the opportunity given by the research project Aglaya to present this preliminary approach on the seminary exploring mythical accounts in the narratives of healing, transcendent light, sense of belonging, and witchcraft aesthetics, the case of witches of the Instagram. This is a seminar that we are organizing for the 29th of November in the Faculty of Philology in Complutense University. The seminar will have an on-site and online hybrid format. Our main goal is to engage in a critical reflection about mythical narratives, interrogating to what extent social media storytelling, such as Instagram, is thoughtful about its authentic mythical accounts. We will approach narratives in the intermediate digital context of Instagram, not just as linguistic structures, linguistics codification in the hashtag, or as a communicative tool, but also and mostly as a cultural practice that looks for transcendence in contemporary worlds. Following Medhetoha's definition, we're looking for culturally mediated practice of sense-making, in which experiences are interpreted or presented from a certain perspective as far as a meaningful, connected account, narratives that have a dialogical and performative dimension, and they are relevant to our understanding of human possibilities. And within human possibilities, we are focusing on those that are looking for transcendence. We're asking in a critical reflection how to identify the authenticity in mythical accounts, following myth criticism premises, looking for explanatory, symbolic, dynamic accounts, looking for extraordinary events with transcendent reference, elements reducible to crisis, different themes of crisis, and presenting a conflicting emotional and factional character, always referring to absolute cosmology, particular or universal. So in the last few years, under the hashtag witches of the Instagram, a vibrant community of modern witches has occupied the social network of Instagram. Their mission is not just to bring witchcraft into the mainstream, but mostly is to redefine what is the meaning of a witch and how to help society at large to answer the question whether witches really existed or are they mythical creatures. Contrary to the stereotype and negative image of witches as evil women, as wearing pointy hats, wearing only black, being over-sexualized, cursing horrible spells, we indeed find a huge number of self-identified witches as beings of light, as healers, and they're bounded by a profound sense of belonging in the need to reconnect with nature as a divine force, as the expression of a goddess that is connected to the moon. There is the predominance of these lunar-based mythological understandings, and how this divine female force expresses herself in many different forms, characterized in different goddesses. The most popular one, the Greek goddess of the witches, Hecate, for example, that correspond to a particular stage of the moon. This is an important reflection that we're going to develop in the seminar, how, contrary to patriarchal understanding of goddesses as opposite qualities, the matriarchal understanding is as a wholeness. There are parts that belong to a whole, and they're not in fight with each other. So while these modern witches advocate for the creative and the healing force of nature elements to transcend everyday alienated experience, and albeit in very different forms, as we're going to see, there is a process of transcendence that starts by reconnecting to the healing powers of Mother Earth. For example, in our current context of COVID-19 pandemic, we will look at a particular example in the seminar. We find in Spain an initiative, Brujas y COVID, in which 5 witches exhorted to find answers, to find significance within all this convulsive pandemic. They are fighting the darkness of this pandemic from a conscious light. And they have prepared, as they said, they explained themselves, a hyper sigil, which is a ritual. And as I said, I will be looking at particular elements in the seminar per se, but this is an example of how, as they themselves explain, there is a passage. The passage from this convulsive human existence to a more transcendent light relies on an awakening of consciousness, as much as a profound sense of community. As they themselves explain, el futuro será comunitario o no será. These are different examples. They explain all the different elements of this ritual. They are based also in nature elements. And they define all ritual as poetic action, un acto de magia en comunidad. They also identify themselves with la luz oscura as not 2 parts separated from each other, but as complementary, relating to the stage of the moon, the new moon, in which is dark. So this, the idea that underlines, and we would like to bring into the seminar, is that all these modern witches, they are claiming the ancient existence of heterogeneous worlds. And in this ritual, the acts of healing is appropriated with mythical dimensions through a mystic symbolism. They're not only embracing the sacred properties of herbs, of crystals, of elements such as honey, but mostly a kind of retrotopia is claimed. When the faith of the idea of a building of alternative society for the future is lost, we see there is the return of the great ideas of the past that have been abandoned. Which ideas? There is a high, an intense remembering of the high priestess, la sacerdotisa. We're looking at also pagan witches, herbalist, especially the one that is mostly related to the aspect of the witch is, as I mentioned, the new moon, right? It's a stage of introspection, meditation, and it's a state of connecting with all our inner powers. So in particular, in all these new ideas of the past that are being embraced again with a lot of force, not only just the proud recognition and proud self-identification as a witch, as a witches, but mostly the idea of proudly embracing pagan religions and identifying as una bruja verde, una bruja herbalista, and so on. And so when asking, and also linked to this, they are clear, all these new modern witches are clearly opposing patriarchal narratives because their goal is to embrace these mythical aspects of femininity that have been previously demonized and that have been previously devalued by patriarchy. So in our research, one of the parts of our research is asking, so what are these mythical aspects of femininity that have been demonized? And looking for what is being written and researched from mythical, historical, and archaeological point of view. We are also mostly drawing on pioneer work, for example, The Gate of Horn by Rachel Lewis. And these works demonstrate that there is an unbroken continuity of religious images and ideas descending from the peoples of the Upper Paleolithic period in age Europe through the Mesolithic, Neolithic developments of the Near East, all the way down to our historical times. And what we see from the archaeological evidence is that the mysteries of female biology indeed dominated human religious and artistic thought, as well as social organization, for at least 200,000 years of humanity. 200,000 years of humanity. And so we see that these first human images that are known to us are so-called the Venuses, and they are found in the Upper Paleolithic remains from 20,000 before Christ, 20,000 before Christ. And we see in both of these examples here how, well, first of all, they're either carved in stone, bone, ivory, or clay, and they're shaped in very fleshy, not stylized, because they're representing pregnancy, abundance, and they are they are found in caves and niches, in graves, and they are interpreted as skull images, the mother guardians of daily life, lady life, death and rebirth of the people. We see that life and death is understood and is worshipped as being one part of one divine cycle. And they are magical images of the mysterious power of female energy and body and biology to create life out of herself and to sustain it. And I think this is a very important idea in order to understand how patriarchal religions, what they did was demonize all that it was considered sacred. For example, in the one that we can see in Yemen, we see how the celebration of these female processes, the mysteries of pregnancy, childbirth, even menstruation, childbirth is a powerful drama and a ritual, right? And we also see in this clay figure how parts of the female body, such as the female vulva, for example, are venerized as sacred elements, not as sinful elements that will become with patriarchal religions. And what is interesting is, like, for example, this masterpiece of Rachel Lewy, it received great praise both in British and American audiences and publications, but since then it has been virtually bypassed or ignored by anthropological, archaeological, academic establishment. The same with many other works that we'll be drawing from in our research. For example, Robert Wilson, The Mothers, Helen Dinner's The Mothers and the Amazons, then the writer and the poet Robert Graves' The White Goddess, G.S. Cradworth's The Eye Goddess, Marie Habituba's The Goddess and the Gods of the Old Europe, Mary Daly's Gynecology, Susan Griffin, Woman and Nature, and many, many, many others. Also, what we find in all these works is that this analogy of the female power as the divine nature. Nature is both grow and is both decay. Life cannot be without death. And we see in paintings, in even all these remainings from, for example, Vinca culture, also from Celtic remains. So we find this recurrent description of the goddess as this female with upright arms, and also identification with different animals and plants. In this case, for example, with a bird that will later develop into other goddesses like the bird and the snake. But also the cosmic serpent is an important association with the fertility. We also see that, well, it's interesting that we see also in the particular case of Spain, for example, we have in the Canary Islands the Lady Tara. We also find how in Galicia the stone, the Neolithic, Paleolithic, it has this powerful healing powers, and is the place of the great goddess, a stone as immortal and as healing. We also find the Sumerian goddess. It's interesting when they tell us that Western civilization starts with the Greeks, and we actually, when we look at the archaeological evidence, I mean, literate history starts with the Sumerians. They are the first ones who are writing in these clay tablets. But how, they also here the image of the snake that it's coiled around her is equated with fertility. Also the Siberian one, look at how she's represented with all these different animals. And also, an interesting, powerful image that then was articulated and demonized by in the Second World War by Germans, right? Also, it's important the Crete civilization. We find the Lady of Risk, for example. This is interesting because they are contemporary to the Babylonians and have nothing to do with these patriarchal Babylonians. This is a much more organic, much more colorful. And also it's interesting, these theories where, that how the religious ideas from Crete and Egypt actually originated in Black Africa. We find that there was a civilization in Sahara, 7,000, 6,000 before Christ, and how then we find images of the horn goddess that later became Isis in Egypt. Also, this idea of the ancient mother of Africa as Malu Lisa, with the snake around her belly or around her neck. She's bisexual, and this is important because she's both female and male. She's the self-fertilizing. And this is also, we see, for example, in the Egyptian Isis, right, that she conceived Horus without a husband, but as an example of this self-fertilizing, she is sexually independent. We also find that in the Mexican goddess, how she's given birth to herself, right, as the old moon gives to. And also we find this idea of this identification with, the self-fertilizing mother of earth, the idea with the tree. We also find this in the pre-patriarchal Egyptian, which, of course, before pharaohs, for thousands and thousands of years, they were matriarchal, and it also tends to be overlooked. We are going to look in our seminar how all this matriarchal attitude to biology and sexuality all of a sudden, becomes demonized, becomes sinful. We find that for example, in the Old Testament, how women who are until patriarchal religions, the force of the creation, all of a sudden are the cause of the fall of the humanity, and they become responsible of the original sin. We find in the Old Testament how the earlier Hebrews gods is a relentless punishment of sexual deviation. Everything that is not for reproductive purposes will be demonized. We will look at that. We'll also look precisely at a special focus in the Inquisition process, because the Inquisition, we 500 years of Inquisition, but only for the first 200 years, there is no witches, there is no hunting of witches. Which is interesting. It happens in the 15th century, 200 years after all this started. It starts with the Papal Bull of Pope Innocent, where all of a sudden, yes, witchcraft is criminalized as an organized conspiracy of the evil's army. Also, we look at examples of the Hammer of the Witches, which became the official handbook for 300 years of mass terror and persecution throughout Europe. There is evidence there. We will look at the quotes that and what it was used as an authoritative justification for the burning and the criminalization of witchcraft. We also look the connection of witchcraft with midwives and the arts of gynecology, holistic herbal healing, especially the work of Barbara Edrin and Derry English, witches, midwives, and nurses. For example, they highlight the link between ancient herbal knowledge and healing and the practice of midwifery as what they patriarchal call witches, and how actually this practice is at the root of secular persecutions by medieval male medical professions as well as churches. Basically, our point is that for this elite male medical profession, all these women with ancient herbal medicine and gynecological skills will become economic rivals. Many of these writers, they refer to the work of Dr. Margaret Murray in the 30s, who highlights that modern ideas of witchcraft are still relied on the same Inquisition trials from the 16th, 18th century, where the real objective of European Christian Church was to firmly eradicate medieval remains of Western paganism. So basically, we would like to look at, with evidence, as we say, mythical, historical, and archaeological, how the ancient mother goddess is now defined as those who follow the ancient mother goddess. They're now defined as rebels, as belonging to the devil, and as witches, right? We look, for example, and I will finish with this, how the everything that was sacred is demonized now. And if you look at the last quote, it says that what is considered a superstition now is necromancy, which is the study of death, geomancy, the study of the earth, and hydromancy, the study of the water. So, well, all of this and much more will be covered in our upcoming seminar, exploring from a mythical, historical, archaeological standpoint how witchcraft and Wiccan nature derives from a primal biological experience, from a psychic relationship with the earth and the cosmos, an experience and a relationship that patriarchy set out to destroy. So in our seminar, we'll bring together different aspects of witches of the Instagram movement, current voices, online community, even online global marketing techniques. We have confirmed as our key speaker, Angelica Velasco. She will delight us with a lecture on the premises, the philosophical premises of ecofeminism. And then as confirmed speakers, we have Amelia Melendez. She will talk to us about Covenant Hecate, performance fotográficas, narrativas artísticas del mito de Hecate. There will be two about Hecates, also doctora Diana Angoso de Guzmán, Hecate ecofeminismo, la mujer árbol en la cultura visual contemporánea, engaging with nature, semio-mythical and gender dimensions of sustainability, la doctora Asunción López Varela, As Mouras Gallegas, su proyección artística, Galicia Encantada en Facebook, doctora Mercedes Jiménez de la Fuente. We also have artistas que descienden de brujas, las redes como estructuras sanadoras, Sara Quintero, perspectivas baubescas en tiempos de Instagram, la vulva separada del cuerpo, Alba Soto y Marina Grau, revisioning Lady Macbeth, from subjected body to retrotopian body, Dr. Victor Huertas, Witch Hound, evolution of societal persecution from Margaret Atwood's to witches on the Instagram, Evelina Spanjovic, ejemplos de la influencia de los juicios de Salem en la cultura de visual, Abraham Pena, y modern witchcraft, fashion, pop culture, and Instagram. Y bueno, since I am running out of time, I'm going to give now I'm going to pass down the floor to my partner, Marta Silvera-Roig. She will talk to us, also provide a preliminary approach on the standpoint of conceptual metaphors. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you very much, Xiana. That was great, and I'm really amazed to see how there are things which overlap, even though I am not doing interpretation, but as the basic blocks of meaning really overlap. So that's really interesting to see. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so can you see my screen? Right. Well, I'm going to do a preliminary approach to the conceptualization of witches of the Instagram. It is an approach from the point of view of cognitive sciences of language, actually from cognitive linguistics. So I am not going to do hermeneutics or interpretation, but I am going to talk about the pre-linguistic conceptual meaning making of the hashtag. I want to thank to Julia and Adrián from the support, and of course José Manuel Losada, and to Aglaya Seminars. Well, as Xiana has said before, we belong to the studies on intermediality and the intercultural mediation group, research group from Universidad Complutense. And well, to begin with, I want to explain why did we choose Instagram. Actually, it is because of the multimedia and multimodality of metaphors. We can find video, we can find audio, text, and now we have stories also. Well, it is the second most popular online social network for hashtag sharing, with more than 1 billion monthly active users. And if we look at the descriptions, for example, trying to differentiate between Twitter and Instagram, for example, in this research by Mythical and collaborators, they describe, I don't fully agree with this, but they describe it as something more light-hearted. Instagram, they define it as a social network where they talk about art, food, fitness, fashion, travel. It will be like most like lifestyle. On the other hand, Twitter is described as such as a social network which talks about more serious stuff. The one important characteristic of Instagram is that even though this, of course, has this in other languages, the most the language medium is English, and even people from which speak in other languages use English hashtags, and it is considered to be more personal and a little bit less brainial and more emotional, somehow like that, even though Instagram receives significantly more attention than Twitter, and this can be seen also in the outcomes of companies which advertise and sell products in Instagram. Well, I found some limitations for my study. One of them is that it is really expensive to access to some data from Instagram. Well, I am still working on this quantitative method. One of the limitations is that, and I think it was after the Cambridge Analytics issue, the application program interface of Instagram was limited for the public. So you have to demonstrate that you are a company or that you are selling certain products, or maybe that you are an influencer to access to certain data. So I used the qualitative method, which is the method in which I can analyze, and I will explain now how I did it, certain popular posts, right? However, I found this tool, this application, which is called Media Toolkit, and this is a basic report. Unfortunately, I cannot go back in time as much as I wished with this application, because one of my main interests was also to see, and my hypothesis is that it can be seen graphically, really in a very clear way, before how has to change before the pandemic and after COVID. So that's something that I am wishing to include in the Congress. So when analyzing witches of Instagram hashtag, well, we find that it is the social network where it is more used is Instagram, together with YouTube. Normally the accounts go together, and people who post in Instagram have their own YouTube channels. This is very interesting. The sentiment analysis is positive. And I wanted to mention that as I am going to talk later about different domains, that as language is dynamic, our use of different domains, such as, for example, the night or darkness, wildness or nakedness, are not necessarily negative, as if we were talking of something static, but that meaning is always to be dynamic, and this is an example of that. The same thing happens with other social networks, being Twitter the most negative one, perhaps, and the most positive one being YouTube. This is the word cloud that I got from this short analysis. As you can see, we have magia, magic, crystals. Well, this here is best hashtag for your post is something that it is used for any hashtag. Witchcraft, witch, spirituality, astrology, love, tarot. And these are the most common hashtags found together with the hashtag which is of Instagram. And here is what I found. I directly searched for witches of Instagram, which has a considerably amount of posts, more than 7 million. And I chose the first 6 most popular posts to be analyzed, and I did the same with the hashtags which went together with it. For example, witch, witchy things, and I did the same with each hashtag, but I chose the 6 most popular posts at the moment of my search. Pagan, witchcraft. As you can see, I chose only the hashtag with a certain amount of publications, with millions of posts. And these different publications are selected because of the by the Instagram algorithm, not by me. And it considers the number of shares, likes, and comments. Witchy vibes, witchy, green witch, which is something, well, Xiana talked before about the bruja verde, actually, directly related with ecofeminism, for example. We have Wicca also. This would be one of the most used hashtags instead of Wiccan or Wicca religion. We have this hashtag Magic K, which is related to Aleister Crowley. And actually, there's a lot of polemic about this because he tried to differentiate magic from the performance magic, and it is related to Wicca religion, Thelema religion, and with Scientologists also, actually. So it is just a way of differentiate like high magic from other kinds of magic. Well, my approach, I am going to talk super briefly about this, is absolutely conceptual. I refer to the theory of embodiment, where we do not separate the brain from the body from context, but we try to comprehend the dynamicity of the functioning of the 3 of them. And also, and this is very important, without forgetting that there is not such a division, and I'm talking from a neuroscience perspective, of emotions and reason. They are completely undifferentiated at the first stage. And of course, they are not only pre-linguistic, but pre-conceptual. I am going to refer to conceptual metaphors and image schemas that I found in this preliminary analysis. And that means that even though I'm going to use images, of course, and metaphorical linguistic expressions, I am going to refer to a plane which is yet pre-linguistic. And that is not always so very easy to see. And well, it takes a lot of practice and how I call it the cognitive click. It is about meaning-making, blending a metaphor, but as a tool of thinking, as a tool of the mind. So we're talking conceptual metaphor refers to the way we think, to the way we see the world and we experience the world. And it is not a rhetoric figure, it is not just a tool of language. To do that, well, it will be very extensive to talk about this now, but well, we can refer to domains, okay, can you hear me now? Ahora, Adrián? Okay, even though when we are talking about conceptual metaphors, we can refer to domains, blends, frames, and image schemas. What I wanted to make clear is that I want to talk about the dynamicity of meaning, in this case, in the context of Instagram. The one very peculiar thing that I've seen, and this is an hypothesis yet, is that taking on account the container schema, which is a basic meaning block, from modernism, if we consider that we come from modernism, from a perspective in which we express something from, our interest is to express something from inside to the outside. Postmodernism changed the rules, so the borders disappeared, limits became blurred, and now there should be a need to find a place again and to put limits to the place where we inhabit. So that is something also related to anxiety or depression or paranoia, for example. In this sense, we can find that Instagram is a new location, it's a new place, and this hashtag, which is of Instagram, is another location. We will see some conceptual characteristics of that. And well, I wanted also to say the metaphors connotes thinking and working processes and not determinate objects. So the question will be, which is of Instagram, which is in this social network, the model which conceptualized in Instagram. The 6 most popular posts that I showed you before are which is of Instagram, witchy things, pagan witchcraft, witchy vibes, witchy, green witch, Wicca, and magic. Okay, and these are the ones which I analyze. So this is my data. This is my corpus. From a visual conceptual metaphor perspective, it is very straightforward to refer to these domains it will be black. And remember that these are taken directly from the hashtags that I showed, the 6 most popular ones. So we have black, we have women, nature, and of course, when we see these pictures, there's a lot of interpretation coming to our minds and narrative, and we keep on explaining and transforming these images into narratives. But as I said before, my main objective here was just to talk about the most primary metaphors and the most essential meaning blocks, which are image schemas. Animals, I'm talking about the visual conceptual metaphor, the house versus the forest. Books, we have memes, quotations, sayings. Moon, fire in the form of a bonfire, mostly in the form of candles. The atmosphere depicted in the pictures is always cloudy or dark. So the conceptual metaphors that we got from these images are, and remember that we are talking about source domain and a target domain, such as in the classical example from Lake of Love is the Journey. So target is source, and the source is given a structure to the target. So in this case, witchcraft is the absence of light, and this is in capital letters because it is the convention for conceptual metaphor. So we shouldn't think about this as a linguistic metaphor, but as a conceptual one. So witchcraft is the absence of light. Witchcraft is a dim light. Witchcraft is night time. Witchcraft is a cloudy day. Witchcraft is a woman. Witchcraft is nature. Witchcraft is a book. And witchcraft is fire. The text which talk about the images. And here I'm going to talk, as I said before, about the most essential meaning blocks, which are image schemas, described as embodied pre-linguistic structure of experience that motivates conceptual metaphors. So they will precede the metaphor process. Mapping. The mapping is, I'm not going to mention it here. It's going to be described further in the paper, but it is the relation between the two domains. So I used some of the text from, and not all the images have text, so some of the text of the most popular post of the hashtags. Here for Season of the Witch, we have time as the target domain, abstract domain, described as objects placed in the dark. And we also have the conceptual metaphor, season is frame. Without being able to conceptualize in a physical way and taking on account the sensory motor system we do own as humans, we wouldn't be able to conceptualize something which seems as straightforward or simple, such as Season of the Witch. So in the conceptual realm, things are way much more complex. We see here between parentheses that the linguistic expression taken directly from the post. And as I said before, on capital letters, we have the conceptual metaphors. So from how powerful does this ritual bath look? We have power is an entity you can see. And I am not mentioning here the dynamic relationship between different conceptual metaphors or the mega metaphor. I am not looking for the narrative behind it. So, because this is a preliminary study, but it is gonna function as the main block of meaning of the narrative. From I was swept into a conversation. We have conversation is a physical place. And from conversations have continued to unfold. Conversation is an object which unfolds. Remember that this is a primary metaphor, and the domain which is given a structure to the most abstract one is directly physical and embodied. This Halloween-inspired composite image, time is object placing. Towards the evening, the itch came. Inspiration is a sensation on the skin. From a time with a veil between the worlds, time is a veiled object. If you do an analysis and a further elaboration, we will discover that time is conceptualized as a living entity here in this narrative. For had only books to consume and all these words it was absorbing, we have reading a sitting. And here, a person or witch is a shaking movement, vibrant, for powerful, which is a strong force. And this goes directly to the force dynamic image schema. I am blooming daily, which is a flower. I am calm, which is a quiet condition. For autumnal Sunday vibes, we have time. It's a shaking movement. And as you can see with the few examples, the extra complex domain of time is always seen and described as conceptualized as something we can actually sense into, that we can experience physically with our bodies. They have this beautiful image here about chrysanthemum, golden amber leaves, got to see the peak fall colors, and the conceptual metaphor is tiny objects placed in space. One more time. It will be interesting to see the dynamics of these objects as how are they organized in a space, how do they change, how do they behave in the conceptual metaphor and in the metaphor. And well, forthcoming, I said a lot of things that I want to do, mostly the diachronic analysis and having more data to analyze, mostly the dynamics of meaning making in Instagram, conceptualization of the modern witch. So I hope that you have enjoyed this, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Xiana and dear Marta, for your words. Let me just say two things. The first one was how Marta underlined the non-oppositional character of the goddesses, but the wholeness. I like that very much, which helped me to understand that we have been through a Manichaeism period during in several centuries, we have to go, we have to get rid of, probably, but not in a positional way, as you said, but in a friendly, properly. I think is the best thing. And about what Marta said, I was certainly impressed by the data you showed us on Facebook and YouTube, Instagram. Thank you very much. But I was even more impressed by the sentimental analysis you gave us, and the way you stressed the indifferentiation between reason and emotion, the indifferentiation that you showed us in your analysis. Thank you very much for this. I'm sure you are opening up new ways of exploring the research on mythology and myth criticism, and opening up ways for the forthcoming conference and on the 29th of October. Thank you very much to you all. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, José Manuel, for your feedback and for really grasping one of the main points that we would like to contribute to this innovation and research project.
If there are any
question or
I don't know, it's Adrian. I have to pass the mic to Adrian to coordinate the question answers section. Sorry, I cannot do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of that. Those who have been following our talk, thank you for your comments. And we're very looking forward to meeting you face-to-face or online, because there are two options on the 29th of November. We'll be giving you more updated information on the program. So we're really excited about continuing this conversation, and thank you for listening to us.
Please do. Thank you very much. Oh.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much, Professor Asuncion Lopez Varela, for your question. This is exactly what we would like to help answering, because first of all, this is a cross-cultural approach. So not just in the figure of Gaia, but how Gaia had very different names depending on the different cultural traditions. Also, in particular, not just Gaia in itself, but the aspect of the moon that is most closely related to what is being identified as the dimension of the witch. And so I think what we find more interesting in our research so far is the image of the snake, of the cosmic serpent. That is what we find. It's underlying the aspect of the modern witch, or what classical Greek define as the witch in the personification of Hecate, for example, that she's also with the snake. So well, if we are going to try to look at the most common mythical images, and one of them for sure is the snake and the serpent, the cosmic serpent, and we will develop that cross-culturally within the time that we have. But we can hope we could be the beginning of many seminars on this. Thank you for your question.
Hi, Ana Maria. Thank you for your question. Well, actually, I I haven't had the time to study in depth the other social networks. So I have a very preliminary vision, but it was certainly surprising to find that, for example, Twitter, which does have this hashtag, by the way, doesn't give space or enough space to the conceptualization of, for example, witches or feelings or lifestyle. It is considered to be light-hearted and feminine, while Twitter could be a masculine force. Uh, Even though for the market, is much more profitable. And somehow when they describe both social networks, Instagram is referred to as weaker. So I find that surprising because it is just the opposite. Because in the way it reaches not only people but the market and thus an economic profit to come to different companies, it is stronger in any way. And also sharing and creating communities is stronger in Instagram. So I guess that Witches of Instagram has a really richer space there, and I would like to know why. And I wonder if it is because of the visual part or the avoiding of this discussions or very short conversations. It is a little bit more introspective, but I'm surprised about the description of the social network as feminine and weaker.
We have to go to our other commitments today. Thank you very much to you, Xiana and Marta, as well as Adrián, for assuring these meetings. And we are looking forward to see you at the conference on the